One broadcast. Hi, Jim Ziegler, the Alpha Dog, and today's guest, Toni Ann Lupo, Fardette. But guess what? we got no video with Toni Ann. So you're going to have to endure this whole broadcast with just video of the dog himself. Let me do a little housekeeping here and set up the public broadcast. Got it? Toni Ann, say hello to everybody.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Sorry for the last minute technical difficulty, but we figured the audio was better than nothing.
The $1 billion girl. Now, how long have you and I known each other?
It's got to be, I want to say 8-10 years.
Oh, at least 8-10 years. I mean, I've been to your dealership. You're the Atlantic Auto Group, the Staluppi Group. I mean, you guys are one of the biggest, most successful dealership chains in the world, the universe, in case they sell cars on other planets. And you are the BDC director. You've got no boss other than the vice president in charge of the whole company, right?
That is correct, yes. And he's actually a managing partner now, too.
Well, congratulations, Mr. Brown. I'm so pleased to hear it. So now the $1 billion thing. Now, come on now, $1 billion. Come on.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll tell you where that came from. You know, it came from the fact that the Atlantic Auto Group is a $1.1 billion organization. And in the 10 years that I've been with them, I have generated over $1 billion in revenue. And so it was meant really when I was thinking of, what was I going to call it and what was the name going to be? It was meant really to try to explain the magnitude of what a position, like that is like on a day-to-day basis. It's not, it's not small money that we're talking about. We're also talking about, $1 billion a year in advertising budgets, as far as digital marketing that I was overseeing. So
wait, back off. How much?
Over $1 billion a year in advertising. $1
billion a year in advertising?
Oh, I'm sorry. Over the course of the 10 years that I've been there, yes.
Scare me for a second, because I know you guys are doing over $1 million a year.
Yes.
In advertising, and matter of fact, you're doing millions. So you're in control of a multi-million-dollar advertising budget, lead providers, SEO, SEM, website development. How many stores?
23.
You were over 23 BDCs?
Yes.
Holy. Well, see, I'm asking you questions to which I know the answer, obviously. But my God, Toni, how'd you? Now I've seen you work. I've met your crew. I mean, I've been in the dealership. Back in the early days, I was teaching you guys how to do video.
Yeah.
We've come a long way since the flip camera, haven't we?
We have, that's for sure. And I think at that time we had only had, when I took this position, and you had come in, we only had about 11 stores at the time. So we've pretty much doubled.
Now, what type of stores are you working with? Is it all imports, all domestics mixed up? What is it?
It's a mix. It's roughly, I want to say, 85% imports. We have a small amount. We have Chevy, Cadillac, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, and the Ford Lincoln store that we just acquired. But the majority of them are imports: Honda, Toyota, Lexus, Audi. So yeah, Nissan, a lot of imports.
Oh my gosh! Of course, I was working with the company a lot longer than I've known you. Actually, I started out with Pickett and Chimella.
Yeah,
that was a long time ago. So yeah, I'll tell you what. Now tell me about your stats. Are you any good at what you do?
That's a loaded question. I'm a very humble person, but yes, I believe that there are probably, I've been in this industry for 18 years, and I've had the privilege to meet a lot of different people outside of the group in similar positions. And honestly, I want to say that in 18 years, I've probably met 5 people in the entire country that I feel could do the job that I've done over the last 10 years for Atlantic Auto Group, that are in that are in the same capacity as me. Whether it's a BDC director, an internet director, a marketing director. And what I always say to my people and just in general is, your opinion's your opinion, my opinion's my opinion, but math is math, right? 2 + 2 = 4, and we can't argue that. So the way that I look at it is my success is spoken for in the results. And Michael Brown would definitely attest to that.
I've seen the stats. Hey, we got Mike Phillips in the crowd. Mike's been a good loyal and old friend of Kurt William Hopp's on. Joe Ferris is on. Chris Sexton's on. We're starting to build some audience here.
Nice.
This is Toni Ann Lupo Fardette, Atlantic Auto Group, the $1 billion girl. Now we're going to talk about how did you do it? I mean, let's talk about how you made it happen. I've seen your BDCs. I've met your people, and I'm talking about super high motivated people. And believe me, Toni Ann, now don't take offense. You're a tough cookie to work for.
Yes, I am. That is true.
I mean, you are definitely a whip cracker. I mean, you absolutely made people do the processes.
Yes. Well, so that's the first answer to your question is that's how I started. I started with process. When I started with the group, I was a BDC manager in a single point store for them, Huntington Toyota. But because I had installed a process there that worked, and I literally installed it from start to finish. When I started with them at Huntington Toyota, there was no BDC. I was a one-man show. So I had to do all of the hiring, build the department, put the processes in. They had just gone on a new CRM at the time. So I had to build the CRM processes, the follow-up campaigns. And so I was successful in doing that over about a 2-year period. And so then they asked me at that point to put that same process in the other, at that time was 10 stores, I think. It may have been 11. So I started small. You can only eat the elephant one bite at a time. I started small and said, let's just duplicate the simple processes that I know work for me. And those simple processes being, what was the CRM follow-up campaign that worked? Making sure that the entire staff, salespeople included, knew how to utilize the CRM properly. So a lot of CRM training, a lot of consistency on that. And then phone training, because my department always had way above average phone skills as a result of the phone training. So I started with those things. And so I was able to see results pretty quickly. But ultimately, as we grew, it did become more difficult for me to still do the same thing. I never had any help. I just recently, I want to say a year and a half ago, finally got an assistant. Prior to that, it was just me. I was a one-man show.
I watched you evolve from the BDC girl to the BDC manager to the executive manager. I watched that evolution of you, and you had 2 children in the meantime.
I did, yes. My son is 7 and my daughter is 4.
You're a mom and a Christian. I know you well.
Yes, I am.
You keep putting that damn elf on the shelf in your house every year. Elf is evil. I told little Frankie, run from the elf.
They love the elf. I think being a mom on that note, though, has made me better at what I do because it's forced me to prioritize. And I've always had above average time management skills. But after I had my 2 kids, I had to take that to a whole other level. And so, I had to master the art of being able to get a lot done in a very little period of time. And
since I met you, you married Frankie Fardette, who
yes,
also works for the company.
Yes, he's the general sales manager at one of the Honda stores, Atlantic Honda in Bayshore.
I never met him.
That's because he works 960 hours a week.
Now you are leaving.
He's probably watching it right now.
You are leaving the Atlantic Auto Group at the end of the month after all these years.
Yes, I am, and that was not an easy decision.
And what I really admire about Michael Brown is he gave you his blessing.
He did. He is a true class act. In fact, the part of the reason for my technical camera difficulty is that I was rushing to get on this. We actually have something called the blue chip class, for lack of a better term, that Michael Brown implemented about 4 or 5 years ago. And that's basically a class of current GMs, but also other people in either executive positions or, sales management or service management positions. And we would meet generally quarterly, and he would bring in speakers, or sometimes we would have internal speakers. And the purpose of the class was to train current employees to eventually be promoted to general manager positions, because he's huge on growth and internal growth. And so we actually had that meeting today, which will be my final meeting with the group. And at that meeting, he stood up in front of everybody and just, had some really great things to say about him blessing this entire thing. And he couldn't have been more supportive. And, he really is a class act, which I think is hard to find in this industry.
Well, let me ask you this. Was Puglisi in that meeting?
He was not there, actually, no.
Frank Puglisi. Yeah. Hey, Trent Palmer's on. Seth Perez is here. Michael Engel's on. We're building up quite an audience here, kid. Okay, what CRM are you using? Is it
Dealer Socket?
Okay, you got Dealer Socket. Mm-hmm. Now you've got Dealer Socket in all 23 stores.
Yes, I would never operate with more than one CRM.
No, I didn't think you would. Now. So what reports out of the CRM are you having, like daily save a deal meetings? How do you run your department?
So the way we run it is pretty simple. It starts with hiring the right people, some of which I was fortunate enough to already have when I took this position, and some of which I've either hired from the outside over the course of the 10 years that I've been there, or have grown, from BDRs into managers. So it starts with that, because I think that mindset is bigger than the skill set piece of it. You could teach skill set, you can't teach mindset. I'm a firm believer of that. So it starts with hiring the right people, and then again the process. So we run it basically where we're not centralized, by the way. So where the BDCs are each in a separate location, on the same premises as the stores. So 23 different locations for the most part, with the exception of 2 or 3 that are in the same building. So that makes my job slightly more difficult, because I have to do a lot of traveling and can't necessarily be in 23 places at once. So we run them based on, what is the process? We're huge on phone training and accountability on the phone training. We mystery shop utilizing JD Power and
now,
a company.
Let me ask you, who are you using for phone training?
We don't use an outside vendor. I teach the phone training in conjunction with 2 other people that we have on. We have an internal training staff.
I sort of knew the answer to that, but I wanted to say you. Now, before we go too far, you've got a website now. You just developed a website for your new endeavor. What is it?
It is thebillionDollarGirl.com.
With the word B in it.
The THE. BillionDollarGirl.com.
I'm a slow typer. Let me throw that up on the screen. There you go. www.thebillionDollarGirl.com. I'm going to leave it up there for a while. Now, see, I've always preached that CRM runs the store. CRM is the entire culture. You marry the CRM. And there's only 2 CRMs I really personally recommend, and that would be Dealer Socket or eLead. And they both have different strengths. They're 2 of the best in the industry. There's a third one, Vin Solutions, but I'm just not happy with the parent company. And I would like to see better support. But eLead, Dealer Socket are the 2 that I personally recommend. And I think that, honest to goodness, the CRM, if I ran a dealership today, now let's face it, when I was in retail, the CRM was a 10-key calculator and 2 Rolodex files.
Yeah.
That was CRM. But I've always been good with networking and CRM. If I ran a dealership today, and I'm consulting literally hundreds of dealers, you will use the CRM or you cannot stay here. Now,
I agree with that.
How about the sales department's cooperation with your BDC? Now, that's what I've always admired about you. You are one tough woman. Yeah, I would never want to get on your bad side or get in your face And let the the PC Tony Ann come out.
Yeah, BC is right. Yep.
What is it? Is it BC? And
it's BC. It's before Christ for me. Before Christianity.
Okay, before Christianity. Okay. And sometimes the little BC jumps up on your shoulder and you get. Yeah,
yes, it does.
I know you so well. And I wouldn't want to get on your bad side. Like I used to joke about vendors showing up without an appointment.
Oh, yeah. That's still a pet peeve of mine, honestly. I just think, if there's any vendors watching, they should just, you got to respect people's time. And that's not to say I don't appreciate my vendors. I have tons of valuable vendor partnerships and relationships, but I just think you have to respect time and I want to hear what they have to say. But if you're just going to drop in, you're going to have half of my attention. So definitely still a pet peeve of mine.
I used to tell some of these little green pea vendors, look, Tony Ann loves for you to just drop in unannounced.
I think you made me a sign once. Didn't you make me a sign once and hang it outside my office when you were visiting?
Yes, I did. Oh, we've had some great times. I'll tell you, you've been a good friend, and I'm so admiring of not just you, but the entire Atlantic Auto Group. The way you run things. Are all your dealerships on Long Island?
Yes.
Okay, so you got a pretty affluent clientele. You got a pretty good clientele as New York or the Northeast goes, I would think.
Yes, that is correct. In fact, sometimes that makes it would make marketing decisions and things like that slightly difficult because I know that most dealers like to say, well, our market's different. And I feel like a lot of times that's a crutch. But in our case, our market really was different for two reasons. Number one, we're literally an island, right? So, like radius doesn't work and things like that because, 4 miles and you're like in the middle of the Long Island Sound from some locations, or you're in Connecticut and it's 6 hours worth of traffic. But back to what you were saying about having an affluent community, you'd have people come in or vendors come in talking about the average cost of living in America. And frankly, the average cost of living in America is like poverty level for Long Island. So we are in a different market and it takes a special type of understanding to really be able to make marketing and advertising decisions in this area.
Well, when you're dealing with affluent people, they're some of the toughest customers on earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure.
I got a fair amount of control over somebody that's got marginal credit and somebody that is wanting to get approved and wanting to get a better deal. But when you got affluent customers that can buy anywhere, you basically got a tough deal. How about the war between the sales department and the BDC? Old school, new school. I hear it so much, I get sick of hearing it.
Yeah. And listen, we are not perfect. And I think that, we have our share of that as well. With that being said, I also think we have a much better overall handle on it than many dealerships do across the country. And frankly, I believe that that's because that process that you spoke of before, especially with regards to the CRM, comes from the top. Michael Brown is, same thing, live and breathe in the CRM. That's it. If the CRM is inaccurate, that's not acceptable to him. You can't walk into his office for a monthly review meeting with a CRM report and say, well, that's not accurate because we don't put the ups in, because that's not acceptable to him, nor has it ever been acceptable to me. So I think knowing that the majority of upper management and the general managers are on the same exact page as far as what is tolerated and what isn't tolerated, gets the salespeople on board because they know that we just won't put up with it. With that being said, though, it sometimes works against us when we are trying to recruit people because we generally have a reputation for being a tough group to work for. But frankly, I think that it's somewhat just that we're misunderstood. But I also think that there are a lot of lazy people out there in this industry, unfortunately. And so when someone says we're a tough group to work for, my response to that is why? Because we hold you accountable.
That is what I admire about the group and you personally. Accountability. Now, I have consulted literally thousands of dealerships over the last 35 years. And I've worked with some of the biggest, most successful companies in the country. And I always went in at the top. I didn't take my authority from a lesser manager. I always went in with a dealer principal or the operating GM. And I've fired more dealers never fired me. I mean, it was just a matter of, because I'll shut a door on a dealer and say, what are you thinking? You know, if you're not going to have accountability and you're going to have some people that are outside the circle and they're not accountable. Now, I didn't experience that in all the years that I've known the Atlantic Auto Group. I've never known you to have people that were outside your processes.
Yeah, no, it's just not something that, again, that we tolerate. And, my personal philosophy is, toxicity, or, some people use the term, cancerous, it spreads. I think I've always been, and I have BDC managers that'll tell you this, or even when I was running my own BDC at Huntington Toyota, with the BDC reps, if you are toxic, I don't care how much you produce. That's just my personal philosophy. If you cannot follow process and you are full of toxicity, I don't want you, because honestly, you could probably be producing double what you're already producing if you are in such a toxic, negative, pessimistic, go against the grain, what's the, least path of resistance type of person. And I have fired many people in my 10 years with this group who have been producers simply because of a negative attitude or their level of toxicity. And back to when I was running the BDC, I've had days where I've legitimately sent the entire department home and sat there and handled every internet lead and phone up myself. Because
tell me about that. I mean, I have fired so many self-proclaimed superstars. If you're selling 20 units, I will fire your ass with that attitude, and I will hire 4 green peas that sell 5 each and behave themselves, and I will give you a bad reference on the way out.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. And again, luckily for me, upper management and the rest of upper management, executive management in the group shares very similar philosophies, and I think that's important.
I don't know. You're too young to remember Gunsmoke on television.
Yeah, definitely don't remember that.
No, but there's a guy named Festus Hagen that was Matt Dillon's sidekick. And the crickets were chirping, the gas lights were burning, and he and Matt Dillon were leaning in their chairs back up against the wall outside the marshal's office. And Festus said something. He said, Matthew, I can't do his voice. He said, Matthew, did you ever notice the town gets real quiet after a hanging? If I fire a superstar, the town gets real quiet.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
You fire Green Pea, you have made no statement whatsoever.
Yeah. And again, I just think it goes back to the whole mindset versus skill set. Again, skill set can be taught. What's your mindset? What's
your mindset? I mean, when I was running my own company, I had a sign over the door, a bad attitude is grounds for termination. It was right above the door to my office. Everybody coming in my office would read the sign, a bad attitude is grounds for termination.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great sign. The other thing that I say all the time too, and this isn't mine, but speaking of movies, one of the best movies I think ever made was, did you ever see Remember the Titans with
Denzel Washington?
Yeah. Denzel Washington, and there's that scene where Gary and the other guy are talking, and he says, that's a poor attitude. And Julia says to him, well, attitude reflects leadership, Captain. And I think, I always remember that. That's one of my just constant go-to sayings or quotes, because I think in a lot of ways, yes, there are certain people that wind up getting hired that just there's nothing you could do to change that attitude. But I think something that's pretty unfortunately popular in this industry is that a lot of leadership is what is generating the poor attitudes, or lack of leadership, I should really say.
Lack of leadership.
Yeah,
because some of these,
and I've taught.
I don't want to pick on millennials, because there are some great millennials out there. I'm not going to pick on millennials, but there is a lot of millennials that perpetuate the stereotype. They expect they come on the sales force and they expect you to build them a little blanket fort with puppy therapy. Excuse me.
No, listen, and I agree with you. And here's the thing: technically, I am a millennial. I am the cutoff. I'm 36. I was born in 1982. So I am the cutoff. But people who are at the cutoff, they say exhibit, traits from both. From both generations. With that being said, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. My father was blue collar. He was a transit authority worker until he died when I was 12 years old. My mother was a stay-at-home mom until he passed away, and with a GED that had no choice but to go back to school and get an education in order to be able to support us. She never owned a home. We lived in an apartment my entire life until I moved out. So I was always taught work ethic. So that there is nothing more frustrating to me than, millennials, and it's not all of them, hanging their hat on this entitlement attitude, because I've worked for every single thing that I have today.
And you need to build them a little safe space blanket fort with puppy therapy.
Yeah. But again, I think, and I've done some research on this, and here's the thing. There is no one generation, believe it or not, who is more pissed off at the millennial than my generation, which is the cutoff of millennials, because we went the exact opposite way. And the other thing that I've done some research on is that, it was Generation Y, I believe, that's coming up at the generation after millennials. They've seen the mistakes that the millennials have made and are choosing to not make those same mistakes. And so what I say to the millennials is they better get with the program, or they're probably going to be part of a generation that has the highest unemployment rate that any generation has ever seen, because Generation Y is ready to just step up and take the jobs that apparently aren't good enough.
They are, honest to goodness.
Yeah.
Now, let's get back to BDC. Oh, by the way, Stephen Stacy's on. Stephen's a good friend of mine. Trent Palmer's on it. I've known Trent for a long time. Seth Perez is still on. Michael Angle's on. Mike Phillips. We got some good audience out there. What would you tell people about running a BDC? What would make a BDC a business development center? And by the way, I would never call it that. I would call it a business communication center. The telephone is absolutely the tool. I mean, the website is the showroom. Google is the weapon, and people don't understand that. The road to the sale didn't die. The road to the sale evolved. We put technology. We put technology into it, and what would you say that the secret is to running a good BDC? What do you have to do? What elements do you have to make it all work?
Well, the first thing that I would say is, segregate everything. And so a common mistake that's made in BDC is, throw everything in there, dump everything in there, make them, for lack of a better term, like the slaves of the dealership. And let's just give them all the crap that we either can't get the salespeople to do, or or we don't want the salespeople to do. And so that, I don't want to say that's okay that the salespeople aren't doing their job. What I'm going to say is this: if BDC is going to be handling your internet leads, taking your phone ups, doing your data mining, making your lease retention or retail retention phone calls, that's great, but you have to segregate it. So in other words, you shouldn't have everybody doing everything, because what winds up happening then, I think, is we make an assumption that everybody's doing something and ultimately nobody's doing anything. I also think it allows them to master a particular area. Now, I'm all for cross training.
Wait. You're assigning specific tasks to team members in the BDC rather than everybody does everything.
That is correct. Right. So you have
like the data mining. That data mining is huge.
Yep.
I mean,
yep. And what happens is when they throw what dealers don't realize is when they throw all of that in there, the BDC rep's order of priority is always going to be, let me handle the internet leads because I don't want to get banged on response time, and let me take the phone ups because that's the lowest hanging fruit. So usually what winds up happening is unsold follow-up, data mining, lease retention, retail retention. That almost becomes like I'll get to it when I can get to it.
Retail retention.
Yeah.
Toni Ann, most dealerships that are listening to this or watching this broadcast right now, they're listening to you. But most people watching this broadcast right now, your CRM has got 20 or 30,000 dead leads in it.
Yeah, minimum.
Those leads are real people, real addresses that tried to buy a car from you at one time or another. Maybe they didn't, but that is information of people that live in your market, would like to buy your brand of product. Maybe they bought from another dealer. Most people don't even realize that more than 50% of all customers in most service departments bought their car elsewhere. One of your biggest opportunities is service customers. They bought their car elsewhere, but they service with you. And people don't get that. You know, to start, you know, equity mining is not everything there is to data mining.
I agree 100%. And I think, again, it's widely misunderstood, but then, you know, more importantly, let's just throw it in the BDC. And that makes no sense to me, why we wouldn't be focusing on those customers. What also makes no sense to me is, you know, we have no traffic, or traffic's down. You know, no shit, traffic's down. You know, does the walk-in even exist anymore, right? It's like, so what are you going to do to generate business? And so to that point, I know you had said, you know, it should be the business communications department. I agree with that. But the reason why I've always also liked using the word development is because what I would always tell my people is, you're called the BDC, not the BMC. So in other words, we don't call you the business maintenance center. We don't need to pay you to maintain the same level of business that we would have if your department didn't exist. You're paid to develop additional business for the dealer.
The business development center, not the business maintenance center. Guess who's watching the broadcast? Jake Leibowitz. Jake is one of my good friends. His dealership's over there in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. I'm actually going to go up to Pennsylvania and visit with his dealership. Now, I've retired from visiting dealerships, but Jake talked me into it, and Jake's a good friend. He's got the world famous Carl Madonna working over there, so I guess I got to go up there. But yeah, Jake's a good friend. He just checked in on the broadcast. We got some real good people listening to this thing. Now, when you start the $1 billion girl, what services are you going to offer? What are you going to do?
I'm basically going to do everything and anything, and I'll be specific in a minute, but that anybody could possibly think of that they need with regards to a BDC or internet department or digital marketing and advertising, which is pretty much what I've been doing for the Atlantic Auto Group for the last 10 years. So I feel that I have a good level of expertise to offer there. So that's obviously going to include basic things that we would automatically think of, which of course would be training, whether that's phone skills training or, internet lead handling and, chatting, texting, building the templates and the CRM, because that's a huge piece of it. So many CRMs, like 90% of CRMs are not set up correctly. And so that bothers me because I feel like no matter how much work you put in training your people, if your CRM is not set up correctly, and that's actually what I'm going to be speaking more on, so I don't want to give too much away at Internet Battle Plan.
I forgot to say, Internet Battle Plan coming up in Detroit, Motown Magic. I mean,
yeah.
InternetBattlePlan.com, folks.
So I don't want to give too much of the presentation away, but that's what I'm going to be talking about, right? I titled it, the CRM of tomorrow today. So setting that up correctly, and that's a ton of work, and the data purification, the filters, the workflows or work plans, the templates, and not just email templates, but taking it a step further. We know that that's evolved. So do we have shortcuts for text messaging? Do we have video emails set up, and things of that nature? Hiring, recruiting.
Back up. Text messaging?
Yes.
Now, you text messaging through eLead or through DealerSocket?
Yes, of course. We want to be compliant. So, yes, there's no texting going on from personal phones or, Google
I can't believe so many dealerships are allowing salespeople to use their personal handheld cell phones to text. Texting is one of your greatest liabilities.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm surprised if they're doing that they haven't heard that the fine, I believe now, is $1,000 per text message. So if they send 3 text messages, it's $3,000. But beyond that, even if it wasn't a legal issue, the part that I don't understand about the personal phone thing is they are not the salesperson's customers. They are the dealership's customers. Why would you want a salesperson taking that information with them on their personal phone, A? And B, how are we supposed to keep everything in one place in terms of the CRM if we have no record of the text message conversation in the CRM? So that doesn't work for me, legal problem or not.
No, it doesn't work at all. But $1,000 per text message. Now get this, you've got Joe salesperson or Jane salesperson, and they're out there texting on their personal device, and they get a consumer complaint, which triggers the investigation. And the investigation, these government agencies don't just look at the 3 text messages you sent Jane. They look at the whole record of that salesperson's cell phone, how many other consumers they text messaged. And it gets to be $50,000, $60,000, $70,000.
Yep.
It's not $3,000 anymore. It's not how many text messages you sent without proper opting in. And the other thing they don't understand is you have to opt in every single time you communicate with them.
And also that they need to have an option for an opt-out constantly. So I've had people say, well, I have written permission, and I have it on file. Well, that's great. But when you're sending a text message from your personal phone, there's no opt-out, and they need to have the ability to opt out at any time.
Opt in, opt out every conversation, not just because they gave you permission at one other time, or not because they even if they text message you in the first place.
Also, I mean, and I'm not going to mention the name, but obviously we know there was a large dealer group that had a $2.5 million lawsuit filed against them for sending unwanted text messages. I don't want to be that.
I don't care. Name them.
It was Lithia.
I know. Lithia got blasted for texting.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a bit. And so did some of the airlines, and so did some of the professional football teams. I mean, there have been some big name, multi-gazillion-dollar lawsuits that were won by the government, not just lawsuits, prosecutions by the government for improper text messaging. And these people don't get it. And I've had people say, oh, I've been doing that shit for years. Well, excuse me, you get caught one time, it ruins your whole damn life.
That's right. And if you remember correctly, Jim, remember when the do not call was introduced? And there were customers going around dealerships literally trying to make a living because off of saying do not call me, waiting for the dealers to call me, or call them rather, because they knew that the dealers were still trying to get ramped up and they weren't prepared yet to deal with the do not call. If we think that people aren't going to do the same thing with text messaging, we're crazy.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm telling you right now, it's got to be controlled through the CRM. It's got to be controlled by management.
Yeah.
And there
the other thing too is, I'm not sure if anyone that's watching this has had this problem, but I got to assume they have, because I know I have in my 10 years with Atlantic Auto Group. How well do most salespeople tend to write, or BDC reps tend to write, right? So what are they sending these customers? If they're sending it from their personal phone, you have no idea, what they are sending to that customer. And I think, and I actually teach a course on this, and this is something else I'm offering through $1 Billion Girls, like this exact type of thing, email etiquette, text etiquette, things like that. We think because we're texting, grammar doesn't count. Well, maybe when you're texting your wife or, but not when you're texting a customer. You should still be, try not to use abbreviations or, emojis. People are texting emojis to customers. It's unprofessional, and there's no way to track it when they're using the personal phone.
No, it's got to go through the CRMs. We talked about data mining. We've talked about. I'm getting a little feedback on your microphone there, kid.
Hold on, let me try to move.
You turn your volume down just a bit.
That better?
Yeah, I'm hearing myself after I said it. It's better now. Yeah, we talked about text messaging. We've talked about BDC. We've talked about the CRM. You've got this exciting new thing coming out, the BillionDollarGirl.com. You're going to be going into dealerships, working with helping dealerships, and you'll be traveling. I mean, this could be a little different for you. I've done it I've traveled 200 days a year for over 30 years. I can tell you, I've been in more than 1,000 showrooms. It's a lot of work. And one thing you're going to find out, the losers are not going to hire you. When I started this company, I was an extremely successful high dollar manager. And the company I was working for, New York company, they wanted to do a pay plan renegotiation. And I chose to quit as opposed to taking the pay cut. And I came home and I told my wife, Debbie, I said, I left the company. She said, you did what? And I said, yeah, I left. I'm going to start a company. I'm going to call it Ziegler Super Systems. I'm going to consult and train car dealerships. She said, Jim, who else is doing this? I said, nobody. I'm creating an industry. And there wasn't anybody else doing it. I was the first. I mean, everybody today that has a Facebook account is becoming a consultant, and you got to weed through them to know who the good ones are. But
yeah, and I thought I'm hearing echo too. Hold on, let me try to move it a little bit. Let's see. Is that better?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. I thought about that and I thought the same thing. And, but I totally agree with you. It's like, first of all, if you don't want to, and I'm not going to necessarily use the term loser, but I mean, you used it, not me. But if they don't really want the help or don't want to follow the process, frankly, I don't want them as a client. So that's the first thing that I would say. The second thing that I would say is, I thought long and hard about this and I agree with you. All of a sudden, this is, everybody and their mother is a consultant. Here's the thing though. And again, I'm not, you know me, and I'm not into the drama and the Facebook drama, and I'm not calling people out. But in doing my research, a lot of these, self-proclaimed consultants, either A, never worked a day in a dealership in their lives. So how they're consulting on something they never did is beyond me. Or B, had a very short-lived career and really couldn't make it happen. So,
they're one of them right now.
So they're talking the talk, but they never actually walked the walk. And so for me, it was like, I've been doing this for 18 years, literally since BDC was first born, started the internet department back when we had an AOL email account.
I have an AOL account. Back off.
No. I mean,
I had an AOL account.
The dealership had an AOL account.
Oh. I had an AOL account when you were pooping in your Pampers. I mean, I've had 1996. I'd got my AOL account. I mean,
yeah, but we had. I'm saying we had no CRM. To your point, like when I started doing it, it wasn't CRM. So we had AOL where we got the internet leads. That was with the Big Rich Automotive Group. Started that internet department, and then 10 years with again, one of the top 10 dealer groups in the country. They would have carried me out of there in a coffin, if I wouldn't have, chosen to move on to this endeavor. So I think there's some very good trainers and consultants out there, but I think that there's not very many that can say that they have the level of experience in areas that I do.
I know one kid right now that is a complete failure. I mean, he has been fired from every management job, went back into sales, couldn't make it in sales, his references are just total crap. So now he's a consultant.
Yeah.
You can only live on daddy-in-law's money so long. You got to jump out there and get it. But my God, you talk about AOL. I was on AOL when it was. You'd yell around the house, "Everybody, get off the phone! I'm getting on the internet." And then you get on, you go.
Yeah, I had that. I remember with that little guy running across the screen.
Yeah. Oh golly. I had income producing websites in 1998.
Wow.
Think about that a second. Oh God, the e-commerce enabled websites, and it took you so long to, you couldn't even watch movies, or you couldn't download any video. Video was just beyond reach. It's come a long way. Now let's talk about Internet Battle Plan 24, the Greektown Casino, Detroit. I have had some of the biggest crowds for Internet Battle Plan we ever had in Detroit. Now, the website, of course, is on the screen. It's internetbattleplan.com. You are one of my featured speakers. I'm expecting you to deliver some really great information. Can you pull it off?
Of course I can. I would come with nothing less than my A++ game.
Okay, because I want people to leave Internet Battle Plan with usable, doable things that they can go back and really use in their dealership. Now, I've got some vendors on stage. I mean, the vendors make Internet Battle Plan possible because I'm only charging $6.95 a seat. My wife, Debbie, and I put this together, and we're the whole company. And we sold thousands of seats for $1,500 a person, thousands. And I reduced the price to $6.95, and the vendors are picking up the difference. So, but I tell my vendors, you can't pay me enough money to get on my stage if you haven't got great content, usable, doable. You're not, it's okay to be a salesperson on stage. I don't mind that. I mean, it's so hypocritical. I don't want you selling from the stage. Excuse me, we're in the sales business. But you quit it. We're salespeople. Internetbattleplan.com. Internetbattleplan.com. The 24th one. Now, we had 200 dealer attendees in the one we just did in Clearwater. I mean, the information, we got such a good reputation. I'm so glad you're aboard. People can call me, by the way. I take my own phone calls. My phone number, somebody write this on the side screen. Hey, Mike Phillips, write this on the side screens. My phone number is 352-775-2174. That's 352-775-2174. People can call me. Dealers and general managers, Tony, dealers and general managers attend at no charge. I want the decision makers there because you at Atlantic Auto Group have had such great support from your top management. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely.
And I want dealer principals and general managers to come to Battle Plan because I believe when the top people in the dealership come to Battle Plan, they hear what their employees heard and they take it back, and it makes it so much easier on the people that attended.
I agree with you 110%. They have to know exactly what the employee is doing and executing, and it has to come from the top, like we were talking about before. It's I don't want to say it's a waste of time, but it's not going to be as effective as it could be.
Nearly 30 to 50% of my Battle Plan attendees are decision makers. Which is just incredible in this industry. There are some internet conferences you could shoot a shotgun through the crowd and not hit anybody, could write a check. It's just amazing that we've got so many decision makers and such a good reputation. Now, the last Battle Plan you attended was Cleveland?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
That was 10 years ago, kid.
No, it couldn't have been that long ago. It maybe 7.
Well, maybe 7. Well, you and Sandra came. You had some other people.
Yes, me and Sandra came. Yeah, it was definitely, it had to be 7, about 7 or 6. And the only reason I know that is because I was in the director position already when we came. So it had to be
was
6
Morgan
or 7 years ago. Morgan was with us, yes.
Okay, you had Morgan, and I went to another event that I won't name, and Morgan found out she was pregnant.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
That is correct.
That's amazing. And Internet Battle Plan Cleveland, we had like 200 people at that one. That was a big attendance.
Yeah, that was that was awesome, and I'm sure that they've only got better with time. But that one was awesome in Cleveland.
I'm thinking about hiring a guy who was the first runner-up on America's Got Talent, stage magician for the next one.
For Detroit?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be nice.
I had a live band at the last one in Clearwater. I keep saying I did, me and Debbie. Debbie is as much producing Battle Plan as I am. And we're so proud of this event. And last time we did Detroit, all the Detroit big dealers came out. I mean, we had some of the big name dealers, and we've already gotten some signups from some of the big name Detroit dealers because this is a quality event. Now, What else would you like to say about your BDC operation? What would you like to say about the billiondollargirl.com? What would you like to say right now? What would you like to tell this audience?
Well, what I would like, I guess what I would just close with briefly would be like exactly what I had started to talk about before, which is I realized that, there are a lot of trainers, consultants, whatever we want to call them out there, some of whom I think are very good and who I have the utmost respect for, but the majority of which, like I said, have nowhere near the level of experience with BDC and digital marketing and advertising that I do, or the success rate. And so I would highly encourage them to reach out, for just whether it's, a complimentary strategy session, or if they just have some basic questions or references. If they visit the website, which you so graciously posted for me, which is www.thebilliondollargirl.com. My full bio is on there. There is actually a video bio that's a couple minutes long for those who don't want to read a bio, as well as
Mike Phillips. Please put that on the side screen, would you? www.thebilliondollargirl.com. My friend Mike Phillips, also a Christian, by the way. Mike Phillips.
Thank you. Yes, I know Mike. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, Mike's on the sidelines watching the show. www.thebilliondollargirl.com.
Yeah, now, there's also some things on there, some items. It certainly doesn't cover everything, but just some of the main things that I can offer. And they can also reach out to me directly. My email, if Mike would be so kind as to pull it up, is Toni Ann. So that's TONIANNE at thebilliondollargirl.com.
Toni Ann at thebilliondollargirl.com. Now, we mentioned Christianity a couple times here, and Debbie and I are Methodists, but I am by far not the poster boy for the Methodist religion. Don't claim to be. I mean, excuse me. I mean, no, I'm not that guy. And I know you to be a practicing Christian. You put it out there. You tell people what you do. So does Mike. There are some real criminals in our business now. All of a sudden, got a mouthful of Jesus, and that just blows me up. I mean, people that I know to be really disreputable people, all of a sudden are running Bible classes. Just hate that.
Yeah. I mean, here's what I think. I think that's a shame, and not in a judgmental way, but just as a brief history, I was not raised Christian. I was raised Roman Catholic. Obviously, that would make sense, right? An Irish and Italian girl from Brooklyn, so Roman Catholic would probably be the religion.
You got some Irish?
Yes, I do. With that being said,
is that where the red hair came from?
Yeah, the reddish hair and the freckles. Yep. So with that being said, though, we never really were practicing, Roman Catholics. It was, go to church on the holidays, make your communion, make your confirmation, so forth and so on. When my mother died in 2013, and I had mentioned earlier that my father died when I was 12. When my mother died in 2013, I was 4 months pregnant with my daughter. My son was 3 years old. It was a really, really difficult time. There were some other things going on at that same time in my immediate family as well. And that is when I would say I really felt like, God was speaking to my heart, and I became a Christian, and at that point gave my life to Christ. So I don't mean, that's a shame in the judgmental way. I just mean, it's a shame, Christian, non-Christian, whatever the religion is.
Well, I'm not as pure as you are. I said it in a judgmental way.
Yeah. It's not.
Guess who's listening? Guess who's Laura Hayes. You know Laura?
Hi, Laura.
She says you are absolutely amazing there on the sidebar.
Thank you, Laura, very much.
Laura is also amazing. Now, she's with CF Search Marketing, and they're sponsoring and speaking. I don't know who their speaker is. They haven't told me yet. I got a feeling I know who it is, but CF Search Marketing needs to get back with me, Laura, and tell me get me the bullet points, the title of the speech, and all the headshots and everything I need for the Battle Plan website. Excuse me, I'll communicate with somebody in the sidebar there, Toni Ann. Toni Ann, you have been such a great guest.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. You've been an amazing host, and of course I love you and Debbie, and I thank you for having me. And I'm looking forward to Internet Battle Plan 24. Right, 24 years.
Internet Battle Plan 24, Greektown Casino, Detroit. Websites on the screen. And next time we'll do another broadcast that actually have you live on video.
Yes, with a camera. That'd be great.
Yeah. You got to buy some equipment that works, kid.
Well, I'm using my laptop because I had just come out of that meeting. So,
Well, the camera's got a little problem somewhere. I don't know why, but anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Toni Ann Lupo Fardette, the mother of little Frankie and Mariah, the wife of Frankie Sr., and my personal friend. She's going to be speaking at Internet Battle Plan 24, Greektown Casino, August 7th and 8th. The website, internetbattleplan.com. We got about 6 or 7 speakers I haven't put on the website yet because Laura Hayes, some of them haven't got me the stuff. But anyway.
My stuff's in, Jim. My stuff's in.
You got your stuff in. I think Laura's going to get on the phone and get that stuff to me. Listen, have a great one, Toni Ann. I appreciate you.
Thank you. You too. And thank you, everyone who participated. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.